a country music queen with a voice that could stop time, yet her own seemed marked by loneliness. After 3 divorces, fans couldn't help but wonder, what was the secret behind Emmylou Harris's mysterious love life? What really happened behind closed doors in her love life? Did her songs hide heartbreaks? Or were the stories she told through music calling out for something deeper? Buckle up, because today we're exploring the untold sex life of Emmylou Harris. After her 3rd divorce, many fans started investigating the secret life of Emmylou Harris, and it wouldn't be long before dots started aligning with dots, and suddenly it makes perfect sense why the Queen of Country is spending her last years single and lonely. While she doesn't seem to have any regrets about it, in an interview with American journalist Dan Rather, Emmylou revealed the backstory to her hit single, Lonely Girl, and how it relates to who she is now. According to her, the song was personal, because that was where her heart was at the time, and so she joked to her friends that it was a personal ad, calling lovers to herself. Unfortunately, not much still changed about her love life after the song. She was 64 at the time of the song's release, and maybe it was already too late for her. But things were different for Emmylou in her prime, as she was one of the most desirable women in the industry. And so these are the many men that she once shared a bed with. Emmylou dropped out of university to pursue her country music dreams, and as she was still figuring that out, she met a man, songwriter Tom Slocum. According to popular stories, she met him while performing folk and country music in Greenwich Village clubs and coffee houses. Things clicked naturally with them as they shared similar musical tastes and influence, and after a few months, Tom was going to be walking her down the aisle. This was in 1969. Tom was Emmylou's first romance, and it seemed like everything in her life was falling into place, especially after a troubled childhood. The following year, she recorded her debut album, Gliding Bird, with the small folk music label Jubilee. The disc featured many recordings, which were written by Emmylou herself, along with one penned by her husband, Tom Slocum. Shortly after the album release, Jubilee Records declared bankruptcy, and this marked the beginning of trouble in the marriage and career of Emmylou. A desperate attempt to turn things around pushed Emmylou and her husband to Nashville, Tennessee. They wanted to start a music career there as a couple. Unfortunately, this was another tragedy, as it would tear their union apart. The couple divorced after their first few months in Nashville, and the reason for their separation remains unknown to this day. It is generally assumed that the frustrations from their musical career and the pressures of building a family tore them apart. Anyway, after they went their separate ways, Emmylou became many things to many men. This was how she tried to make ends meet. She worked as a waiter and a hostess, and when she could, she performed at nightclubs. Emmylou confessed that the months after her divorce were the toughest as she was surviving on food stamps and Medicaid. Things grew from bad to worse, and the singer was forced to return to the Maryland suburb of Clarksville, near Washington, D.C., to live with her parents. As she performed in clubs, Emmylou was able to gather a decent following, but even that didn't impress her. According to her, she was very convinced that she was never going to make it big as a music artist. At that point, I'd retired forever from the music business, she recalled. But things changed when she met the second man on today's list. One evening in 1971, Emmylou jokingly performed the country song, "It Wasn't God Who Made Honky Tonk Angels," at the cellar door. She knew very little about country music at that time, but this changed everything for her. She didn't know that the Flying Burrito Brothers were listening, and they would casually mention her to American singer and songwriter Gram Parsons, who was in the market for a harmony singer. At that time, he had left the Byrds and the Burrito Brothers, and he was looking to establish a solo career. Gram got in touch with her the following day, and a year later, he sent her a plane ticket to Los Angeles, California, where she recorded harmony vocals for his debut album, GP, from September to October 1972. While the album was not exactly the success they had planned, Gram had already developed a natural liking for Emmylou, and he now wanted her around. She was invited to tour as a member of Parsons' band in 1973, and on many occasions, she performed vocal harmonies and duets with him. Through their recordings and tours, we observed great musical chemistry between this duo, and it was obvious to all that Emmylou had found her path. Tongues started wagging as people suspected that there was more to their relationship than what they advertised on stage. Emmylou was too shy to comment on it, and Gram avoided the topic too. Still, people refused to be convinced otherwise. Everyone knew that Emmylou was most vulnerable when she met Gram. She was nursing a heartbreak after a nasty divorce, and her career was tearing apart. So, it was very likely that the magic that these two shared on stage translated into something even deeper behind closed doors. At this point, Emmylou is the only one who can tell the full story. In 1973, Gram Parsons died of an alcohol and drug overdose in a hotel room near Joshua Tree National Park. This was another heart-wrenching time for Emmylou, who couldn't figure out why life was so unkind to her. Parsons' album, Grievous Angel, was released posthumously in 1974, and 3 more tracks from his sessions with Emmylou were included on another posthumous Parsons album, Sleepless Nights, in 1976. Gram died in 1973, but according to Emmylou, he left her with something to remember him by, something that she would hold on to for the rest of her life: the country rock legacy. "Once I started singing country music with Gram, there was no turning back for me," Emmylou shared in one of her interviews. So, she quickly formed her own band and continued with her career. Emmylou did all she could to deny any form of romance with her late boss, Gram Parsons. But with Brian Ahern, her producer, she was going to be as loud as she could. Not very long after Gram's death, Emmylou contacted Canadian-based producer Brian Ahern, who had just finished a hit project with Anne Murray. She wanted him to work with her. Brian agreed, and they signed a contract. According to the Emmylou, working with her new producer did something to her. He had his ways of understanding the uniqueness of every artist, while being patient enough to groom them to perfection. Maybe that was why she fell in love with him. He allows you to grow at your own pace and gives you just enough room so that you don't hang yourself, but you also start to get confidence, Emmylou said about Brian Ahern. "I felt I had a safety net, that he was listening to everything, and sometimes just him not saying anything was exactly what you needed. It's a very nurturing presence." At this point, it was very difficult for Emmylou to not mix business with pleasure, as she had grown very fond of her boss. They soon started dating, and by 1977, they tied the knot. Ahern went on to produce Emmylou's next several albums, starting with 1975's Pieces of My Heart. The album was a commercial success, reaching number 7 on the American Billboard Country LP chart and number 45 on the Billboard 200 All-Genre chart. Its second single, If I Could Only Win Your Love, reached number 4 on the Billboard Country Songs chart. The power couple followed this success with an even more successful collaboration in Elite Hotel, Emmylou's second studio album. It became her first to top the Billboard Country chart, while also climbing into Billboard 200 Top 25. Elite Hotel also brought Emmylou the Grammy Award for Best Female Country Vocal Performance. In 1979, the couple welcomed their first daughter, and Emmylou was forced to put her career on hold. This was where things went wrong. With a baby in the picture now, Emmylou had new responsibilities, and this almost drowned her. The struggle to balance her blossoming career and wife duties took a toll on her, and by 1983, her home was broken. The couple finalized their divorce in 1984, and Emmylou relocated to Nashville, Tennessee. The 1983 White Shoes was their last collaboration together as husband and wife, and to date, it remains one of Emmylou's lowest peaking albums on the US country chart. Despite the ugly separation, the two artists maintain a professional relationship and respect for each other's craft. They've reunited a number of times for different projects, but fans continue to argue that nothing will be as authentic as the work they put out as husband and wife. A few months after her divorce from Ahern Brian, Emmylou started collaborating with a new producer, Paul Kennelly. Still hasn't learned her lessons, Emmylou allowed herself to be seduced into a romance with her producer, and this time, she was in a rush to make things formal. They tied the knot in 1985, 1 year after her last divorce. That same year, the pair composed The Ballad of Sally Rose, which was released by Warner Brothers. It is believed that this record was loosely based on her time with Gram Parsons. Despite reaching the US country top 10, the project was considered a commercial failure due to poor sales. Unfortunately, the next thing that was going to fail after this was Emmylou's marriage. The couple divorced in 1993. This was her longest-standing marriage. After this time, Emmylou committed to guard her heart very diligently, and to date, she has still not found anyone worthy of a partner. Emmylou, now 77 years old, is a proud mother and grandmother. She enjoys the lavish lifestyle in her home in Nashville. Last we checked, the Queen had an estimated net worth of $15 million.